Let's go, let's go, let's go. Welcome to another edition of the Create Your New Life Real Estate Business Meeting and Coaching. I am your host, Michael G. Davis, powered by Brooks & Davis Real Estate Firm. We are excited. I'm back. We've been gone for a couple of weeks, but I'm back, ready to wrap up this shift series we've been working on. Extremely excited about being back with you guys today. So let's jump into it to really be talking about coming to the tail end of our discussion with the book shift. We're going to be talking about how to bulletproof your transaction, how to, now that you've done all the work of generating the lead, converting the lead where they become your client, working with them to get them under contract. Now that you got them under contract, the worst thing that can happen is you lose the deal blows up in your face. So we're going to talk about how Gary Keller speaks on that, as well as I'm going to add my input on my experiences and things on that as well. So that's going to be exciting. Also going to be looking into, Brooks & Davis feeling some kind of way about respect and family as a community culture. And then we're going to be talking about how our realtors are able to receive Elective CE credit when they're doing trainings and things like that. So we got a lot in store. Let's jump right in. Again, want to thank you for, if you're checking us out on our YouTube channel, I definitely want to thank you for giving us an opportunity to see what's going on. We have one of our agents that she's a part right now. Well, a couple of our agents are logging on right now so they can take advantage of that CE credit. So at any moment, our agents are able to stop me. They're able to talk to me, ask me questions, as we spend this hour together. All right, so a couple of things as we get started. I always like to start our sessions off talking. We got Jessica Joseph on board with us now. We got Margaret Harrison rocking with us right now. So we got people on board with us right now. Again, if you're checking this out on our YouTube channel, then I highly encourage you to follow us on our social media platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, which you'll get a big insight into the things that we do as a brokerage firm, the things that I do personally, as well as our co-founder Larry Brooks, some of his escapades. You'll be able to see all of that on our YouTube channel. So it gives you great insight into us as an organization and our personalities. Like us on our we're on everything. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. Follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter. And share. If you learn from the content, the things that you see, we ask that you share that with someone that you love. Send that over to them. Also, we, as you can see, I'm not at my regular location. I'm actually broadcasting from our coaching and training that we're going to be launching here real soon, our new facility. Actually, on February 20th, we're going to be launching that new coaching and training center. So today, I decided to broadcast from it. Not going to give away too much insights for you to see because I want you to wait till February 20th when everybody's coming. So you can come check out our new coaching and training facility. So save the date. That's February 20th at 7 p.m. That's a Thursday. I'll be here at our new facility. So there goes my shameless plug for me to plug that event in. But if you do see something and you want to sit down and talk about your future, you want to sit down and see how the coaching and the training that we have built our brand on, how that may work for you, then I encourage you to click on that, go to this link and schedule a 30-minute company introduction so I can share with you the things that we offer and what that one-on-one coaching really looks like, how it puts agents in a position for them to be successful because we are committed to that and we've put the measures in place to do that. So I highly encourage you to go to that link, especially if you see something or hear something that sparks your interest. And I spoke briefly about this earlier. I know we showed a couple of our agents that are getting on right now, and it's because they're wanting to capitalize on getting an hour of CE credit, which our agents are able to do that because of our providership that we offer. So not only do they get the insight, do we come together as an organization, but our agents also are able to, when it's time to renew their license, they're able to get that CE credit contributed. So we love to show that off when we spoke about this a little earlier. You know, what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about bulletproofing the transaction. And that right there is a big, big deal to me, because I mean, once you put in the work and you, like I said, you generated the person, you got the person to raise their hand and say, you know, hey, I want to buy a house, or I want to sell a house. So you got that, right? And you've gone over and you met with them and you got them to sign up with you. You did that part. And, you know, now you got them to pick a house. You got it under contract. Well, I've seen so many, there's multiple layers in that transaction part that'll kill the deal, man. And I'm telling you, it's just a sunken feeling in your heart when you didn't put that work. I've seen stuff blow up right before the closing table. So today we're going to talk about how do we put measures in place to prevent that stuff from happening. So that is one of the things that we're going to be talking about. How do you bulletproof, put that Teflon bulletproof jacket on to stop them deals from blowing up? All right. Now the quote that I had on there, and I felt it worked for what we're going to be talking about and what we've been dealing with in this shift, comes from Henry Kissinger, which was a former Secretary of State for the United States of America, and he was a great negotiator, great diplomat. So one of the things that he said was, a diamond is a chunk of coal that did well under pressure, right? A diamond, all it is a chunk of coal that did well under pressure. So as we're talking about these tough times and we're talking about being in these shifts, that pressure can do one of two things. It can either crush you or it can turn you into a diamond. You can start shining from that pressure. Well, which one is it going to be for you, right? What's it going to be for you when the pressure comes? And trust me, it's going to come. Right now, in a board meeting that I was in today, one of the attendees of the board meeting said, it's a good market now, but when it turned, we're going to see who's left. And that's the reality of it. That's why I felt that we needed to go into this book and dig into it. And I'm going to say it again. My top recommendation is for you to go get the book. That's the top recommendation. If you're not going to get the book, then at least get the show notes, where I go in, it's like the cliff notes for the book, right? But you definitely need to take seriously and take some stock on where we are as this market, so you can be prepared in the event it starts moving in the right direction. I mean, in the wrong direction. You don't want to be on the wrong side of the ship. It may very well do what, like my fellow board member had to say, put you out the business. So if this is your first video that you're looking at, I highly encourage you to go back and look at the other 10 episodes of this particular series. We are going to package it. We are going to create a playlist so we can easily send it out. But I highly encourage you to go back and really dive into what we've talked about here over these last 10 sessions when it comes to this book shift. All right, so before we get into our training, let's jump into business, talking to some business. So every time we meet, we deal with a little bit of our core ideology, right? And we call it our moment in core, 60 seconds in our core, our minute in core. And the reason we do that is because we always want people to understand, as well as our agents, we want them to understand what are we made of as an organization, the things that we go after. And our ideology is made up of three things. It is our purpose, our core purpose, our core goal, our core values, as well as our core mission, what we look to achieve. So today we're going to talk about one of our 5 core values, and that value that we're going to talk about today is treat and respect one another like family. You know, one of the things that we get, or the feedback that we get, is the family culture that at Brooks and Davis that we have. So, you know, and the reason that when a person walks through the doors of our CNTR center, and they can feel the energy that we're giving off, is because we're intentional about the treating and the respecting and the family ideal. And the reason we are intentional about it, because we've typed it into our DNA through our ideology, right? So those people that are part of the firm and those people that we do business with, it is like a family, and we look at it that way. So now, does that mean that you're going to like everybody like a friend? You're going to be having sleepovers with them and all that other stuff? No, that's not what it's going to be like, because guess what? You don't like everybody in your family. Everybody got that one cousin, that one uncle, but you know, you may not like them, but they still family, right? You still love them because y'all have something that binds you together that y'all are connected to. So that's the same thing with us, right? You ain't gonna like everybody. You're not gonna like everybody that you work with, or everybody that's one of your colleagues, everybody that wears that Brooks and Davis badge, but we are gonna treat each other like family, because the thing that binds us is Brooks and Davis. We have something in common. This is our tribe, and we have to protect it. So that is one of our core values, and that is our time in the moment of core. So now, once we finish the moment of core, then we always dive into the kind of production that we're doing as a company. So, you know, we've made some major strides since my last time with you all 2 weeks ago. It looks like we've got a lot of activity, a lot of contracts that we got put on the board. We got more than 2 people on the list, because before I left, we only had 2 people had something under contract. But now it seems that we have, you know, more people that have properties under contract. So now, definitely want to congratulate our top 3 for this week. Looks like Margaret is still holding on to that #1 spot. So congratulations, Margaret. Congratulations, Margaret. Do your happy dance so the people can see you do your happy dance. But congratulations to Margaret. And then we have Mashana, who comes in second, and then Roy, who's representing the fellas, is coming in as third. So congratulations, everybody, for maintaining your positions and your roles in our top producing individuals for the organization. Congratulations. We do have some affiliates. I'm not going to officially launch them until our next session, because I want to get with them and I want to talk to them. But we did have 2 affiliates that went while I was out of town. They went and they took their exams. We did our Winning Wednesdays. They attended the Winning Wednesdays. They took their exams, and they passed the exam. They kicked that exam's ass. Yeah, I said it. I cursed. Ass. They kicked it. Because let me tell you something. You don't understand how challenging it is to pass that real estate exam. So for people to go and take it for the first time, and they pass it on the first go, you know, especially with one of the individuals that was able to pull it off, you know, we talked about their anxieties and things around it. You know, they had pushed the test back like 3 times, and I finally, through our Winning Wednesdays and through my time with her, you know, what I'm doing now with our affiliates is, before you go take that exam, I want you to sit down with me and let me get in your mind, because most of it has to do with your mindset and walking into there to take that test with the right mindset. So I'm extremely excited about that. I'm excited about launching them at our next session as our new agents. And look, you guys be on the lookout, because as we go after this goal of getting to 101, now it's go time. Like, we've laid the foundation, we laid the platform. So this next month, we're going to be hitting it hard. So you guys be on the lookout. But definitely want to congratulate and talk about these new individuals coming, promoting themselves from our affiliate real estate program to now full-fledged agents, and we're going to work with them to get them taken care of. Right? All right, so the proprietary program that we want to look at today has to do with something that you are already participating on. It has to do with our Create Your New Life. I want us to spend a little intentional time talking about the Create Your New Life, because the Create Your New Life is an opportunity for our agents to not have to feel like they always office to get access, to get information, to get engaged, right? So that's what this Create Your New Life session is all about. You know, we have over 100 episodes, so this is episode 125. So, you know, as you can see, if this is something that we've been doing on a weekly basis, we're more than 2 years in on our Create Your New Lives. So, you know, it is a staple for our organization at this point. And now that we, you know, created the providership, and now that we're offering the CE credit component that's attached to it, now that, you know, we brought in a new platform to where it's easier for people to engage, it's easier for people to log on. We still have that recording component. So that Create Your New Life, the Create Your New Life program that we have has been phenomenal. And we, you know, as we are in 2020, you know, going through the first quarter of 2020, we want to constantly showcase what we're able to do with this program, how we're able to train and coach with this program, and really highlight to the world, really, because, you know, all of our recordings go to our our YouTube channel. Highlight to the world how we truly do this one-on-one virtual coaching aspect of Brooks & Davis Real Estate Firm. So it's not just us talking, you know, the proof is in the pudding. You know, the world can see how we are able to access and reveal this virtual environment that, you know, there are many offices, and that's what they shoot for. They shoot for being virtual, but we have positioned ourselves to actually do it, and do it in a major way, in a humongous way, how we do our level of being virtual and being in the cloud and being all those, you know, that technical mumbo jumbo that people refer to. So this is us doing it. And, you know, because I have some agents that are on board with us right now at the Create Your New Life, so you guys are not just hearing my voice, I would love for Margaret or Jessica to respond and talk to us about, you know, the Create Your New Life or the virtual aspects of Brooks & Davis and how it's been working for you all in your business. Please share.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We can't hear you, Mark. Maybe I can't hear you. Hold on.
You can't hear me?
Hold on. Let me see. Say
hello.
something, Mark.
Hello. Hello.
Okay, now I can hear you. It was me. It was operator error. I had turned my speakers down. Now I can hear you. Now the world can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, so the virtual aspect is very handy. I don't have to always be in the office to get some tips or to look up something. I can always just go to that you may have said that I need to go back and review. Let's see. And the coaching. The virtual coaching also comes in handy because you are very busy. So if I could do it virtually while you're coaching, and you could, you know, coach me up a little bit, that's very handy. So thank you.
Yeah. Come on, we got to coach them up by any means necessary.
Yes.
Hey,
What's up,
can you hear me? All right, perfect.
Yes, the world can hear you. You on the world stage.
Well, thank you. Well, definitely, I would say the benefits there of having virtual training, just to follow what Margaret says, that it's convenient, just being able to log in whenever you choose to, even if you catch up, or even if it's on the actual training day. But then also just the benefits of being able to take advantage.
Hold on, Jess. Well, no, I can hear you, but Margaret, I need you to mute yours because the world is hearing an echo, and the world don't want to hear no echo. Yeah, so Margaret gonna stay in the same room, y'all. They see not everybody's seen behind the curtain. Seen behind the curtain. All right, but you were saying so much great information, Jess. I needed to make sure the world could hear it clearly. So
okay.
Go ahead.
Perfect. Well, I will bring that back for you all. Definitely the benefits there of the virtual training are to just be able to have access wherever you are to get the benefits of that training and what it is that Mr. Davis is speaking of, and also just to be able to have the CE credits available for you. Not being able to really go to events as often, having the virtual training and this coaching opportunities and be able to get that CE credit is a great benefit.
That's what I'm talking about. See, y'all heard it first. Y'all heard it from the people. Because see, the world, let me tell you, the world don't be thinking I'm telling the truth on how great we are over here at Brooks and Davis. So that's why we got to bring the people in to explain to y'all what y'all missing out on by being with some of these other brokerage firms that ain't doing what they need y'all to do, what y'all need them to do. Y'all need to come sit down and talk to your boy. Come schedule that meeting with me. 30 minutes. But look, appreciate y'all for sharing that. So look, let's go ahead and spend the rest of our time diving into shifts, diving into how do we make sure that these transactions aren't blowing up in our face, right? I promise you it's a horrible feeling, right? I mean, Jess, you know about it. Margaret, y'all know about deals busting, what we call it, busting out, DNC, did not close. Come on, man, don't nobody want feeling like that. So we're going to talk about what parameters can we put in place and around to ensure that that doesn't happen. All right, now before we go into it, I always like for y'all to make the connection of number one, how to find the show notes. So let me do that real quick. Let me see. Go here with it. Because we want to make it easy. Share my desktop. Boom. All right, so we want to make it easy for you to show you to get to it, right? So you got your 7-dot training. There we go. So we all got our 7-dot training folder, right? And all you got to do is type in capital EP and whatever episode that you want, right? So like today is episode 125. You can just type in EP and it pull it up for you. Or you do the backslash, you do the EP and the number. So say I wanted episode 24. Boom, there it is, episode 23. Oh, it didn't give me that one. Boom, so that gives you all of them. So for today's purposes, you type in episode 125, and then you click on the folder. And not only do you get the notes, you get the slides that I share and some of the visuals that I talk about in the sessions. You'll be able to show them. So all you got to do is just click on the file, and that takes you to the show notes, which is what you're seeing here on my screen. All right. So I again want to make it easy for you all to understand how to get to those areas of the session that we're going through right now. All right. Also, what we want to do is just recap briefly, what we've been doing here these last 11 sessions. So as we talk is that we're looking at 12 tactics, right? There are these 12 tactics that Gary Keller designed and that he presented in the book, right? And these 12 tactics for tough times, you can see here on the left, right? And they go through, and we started our sessions off talking about mindset and action, and we've gone all the way through the to the last tactic. So today is the last tactic. It's tactic number 12. Now, although we have one more session after this one, that session is going to be more of a recap because today is the last. We're dealing with tactic number 12, which is issues and solutions and how we deal with them. Well, when you look at that and you compare it to our Realtor Success Funnel, which is the diagram to the right, and our model has a lot of what Gary talks about weaved in and out of it. Well, we just took 6 skill sets and we took 6 key areas, and that's just how we base it, and we build a lot of our programming and things around it, a lot of our coaching around that. But as far as today, what we're going to be talking about is skill set 6, right? How to get that contract that you have closed and as smooth as possible. That's what we say. That's how we titled it. In company, that's how we call it. Gary calls it bulletproof in the transaction. We call it getting it closed. And a lot of the components that we're going to be talking about here today are found and dealt with in our substance or our content that's built around skill set number 6, that final skill set. Now, one of the biggest things that I really want to highlight, and again, it goes to the importance of why you want to put parameters and boundaries in place when you get to this point, is because on our diagram, you see these gaps, right? And these gaps, they get bigger as you move down the funnel, move down the success funnel. And the reason they get bigger is because guess what? As you move down the funnel, the loss is greater when the deal busts. When you lose the deal, that loss that you've experienced is a lot greater as you go down the funnel. Now, why is that? Because look at all that you had to do to get to that point. And that's the same thing that Gary talks about when you get to this stage of the transaction. The weight of losing that is heavy because you can't get any of that effort. You can't get any of that time back, right? As professionals, we don't get paid unless we get through the funnel. So, I mean, it doesn't, like, nobody's paying you for the time, effort, and energy that you put into something. It all comes out at the end. So that's why you want to, because you're going to be navigating through this gap, you want to make sure that you're positioned, you got the right protection in place so that you don't have to feel that, right? All right, so what does Gary have to say, and what do I say? What say you, Michael G. Davis, about preparing yourself and preventing yourself from dealing with the pain, the agony of losing a deal at the end, all right? So, we're talking about, if you're going, one thing that he points out when he gets to this part of the book is that shifts can be maddening, right? It could be very confusing when you're going through this atmosphere, because if you haven't been in real estate long enough, then number one, you don't know what a shifting market even looks like. Like I say all the time, when I was in 2007, I didn't even realize the market had shifted until 2009. Like, it took me 2 years. I'm in it, living it, and I'm not knowing what's going on. And the crazy thing about it is that that's 2 years of being in the business. That's 2 years of putting a lot of energy, putting a lot of effort, not getting the results that I'm wanting, and then realizing, making, the amount of money that was made previously being cut in half, but doing the same, if not more, actions and activities, and just dealing with all of that. So yes, that could be frustrating, not understanding, trying to figure it out. Like, once I realized the shift and started making adjustments to line myself up with that, I had already lost 2 years. So that's why we're wanting to avoid that. So you can avoid it by just basing my 15 years of experience, thousands of transactions under my belt, allow that experience to help you not have to relive the same situations that I had to experience, right? So one of the things he says that, you know, during a shift, what typical transaction, same thing I just said, what was typical becomes atypical, right? It becomes like everything changes and it becomes unsettling, right? So really, during this time, whether you're in a shift or you're not in a shift, just real estate transactions in general, there are problems. There are problems that are going to arise, right? They're not trouble-free. They're not trouble-free at all. And guess what? In a shift, having to deal with those problems or not effectively managing those problems or issues can be even more daunting because the opportunity is not in abundance as it is in a good market. So one of the things that he points out is that, you know, when everyone believes the market is headed up, then because of that, and this is him, you know, he said this before, because of that, buyers are afraid of missing out. And buyers are afraid of sinking with the ship. So whether going up or going down, that issue of fear when it comes to buyers is something that's real that you as a professional are going to have to become skilled in understanding how to manage, right? So now, even though both of the fears are there, you know, one of them drives the buyers to hold the deals together at any cost. The other drives buyers to allow deals to fall apart, right? So that's something that you got to keep in mind. You know, what he's saying is that when the market is headed up and buyers are afraid of missing out, then because of that scenario, they're going to do whatever they can to not lose a deal. Right? So they're going to make concessions. They're going to hold on for dear life. They're going to push this thing through, which is what you want as a professional because, again, we don't get paid unless it closes. So the buyer in a good market, or where he says the market is headed up, the buyer is incentivized to keep the deal together. But when the market goes the opposite direction and it goes down and we start having a tough market, well, now the buyer is incentivized to blow the deal up, right? Because of that fear that is going to that's driving them to protect themselves at all costs. And because of it, they get that cold feet and they back out of that thing, right? So it's that reluctance and that concern, and even if they do hold on to the transaction, that reluctance and that concern is always there with the buyer. And you can't let it go unchecked. You have to be aware of it, number one, and then you have to go into it with the mindset of, I'm going to do something to manage and deal with this reluctance and concern. Assume it. And every buyer that you work with, already have it built in, that reluctance and that concern, that every single one of them, they have it. Because if you don't, then you're setting yourself up for the surprise. And you don't want the surprise, right? So it doesn't go away. And it definitely doesn't go away when the contract is signed. I mean, as a matter of fact, it intensifies, right? So the one thing that Gary wants you to take away, and I want you to take this away as well, that no sale is safe until it's sealed at the closing with everyone's signature, right? You cannot take for granted, once you have a contract signed and an offer accepted, you cannot take for granted that it's going to make it to the end, right? You can't go into it with that mind frame. And I'm speaking from experience because I used to go into transactions with that mind frame. Like I used to go into it with the thought that, all right, whew, we got it under contract. Man, we done negotiated these terms. Oh, meeting got it through the inspection. All right, we good now. We made it through the appraisal. Oh, man, we good now. It ain't never safe. No matter what stage, what level that you've gone through in that transaction, the deal is never safe until it's sealed at the closing with everybody's signature, right? All right, so then this is when Gary jumps into the whole bulletproof the transaction, right? And I 100% agree with the statement that he made in the book. He says he not only had to master the transaction, but also the sales skills that went with the successful transaction. And I co-sign with him wholeheartedly on that statement. I had to become a master, skilled salesperson, not just to get the business, but to ensure that what was promised in the beginning to the buyer or the seller was achieved even after it got under contract. You have to become a master at that, right? Not just okay, you have to, not just great, you have to become phenomenal at keeping the transaction together and guiding it through to the end, right? You have to become good at making certain kind of assumptions, right? Again, one of the assumptions that I said earlier, you got to assume that every buyer that you come across has a level of reluctance and concern. And you got to make that same assumption for your seller. There's a level of reluctance and concern, period. I don't care how great you think you are, right? How magnificent professional that you think you are. You have to assume that when on the other side of the table, they may not see your greatness. They may not see you like that. So you can never let your guard down when you go into that, right? You know, one of the things he says is look, just like a transaction can come together, it can fall apart. Like, you got to have that going in the front part. You know, one of the things that a common theme that you're going to see here as we continue to talk about this is you protect the transaction at the beginning, right? And you do that through managing expectations, right? Since you already know what's coming, like you know that they're going to deal with some apprehensions, maybe some buyer remorse, that there may become some trouble. You're going to run into troubled water, maybe around the inspection, maybe around the appraisal, you know, with the lender. Like you as a professional know these things are going to come, and they're common for every single transaction. So you got to tell the client up front. You got to do that in your buyer consultation and prepare them for the choppy waters that they're going to experience, because the people don't like surprises. I know people say, well, you know, I like surprises. I like surprise parties and this and that. No, you like the surprises that you want, right? But you don't like surprises. You just don't call them surprises. You call them problems, right? We don't like them, right? We don't like things that are not expected. So don't put your client in that position, because when you put your client in that position, then at the end of the day, if it don't go right, I promise you, it's all going to point back to you. So give them the heads up. Make sure that it doesn't catch them off guard. And that's what he talks about. It's got to be done up front. All right. So, you know, some of the things before we get into the bulletproofing of the transaction, it's understanding the same skills that you use in the lead generation piece, taking that same mastery and utilizing that same mastery for the well-being of the customer, because you need the customer's well-being to be fulfilled. It's how it's set up. It's how our compensation structure is set up. So, I mean, they have to win. They have to win in the end, right? And we have what's needed to make that happen. There's a lot of emotional and financial costs to yourself and to your customers when deals fall through. Understand that. And make a promise to yourself that you won't never have to experience that, because it is tough. It is very tough. And also, don't just think about yourself. A lot of times when transactions bust out, you don't get an opportunity to work with that person again, because if the pain is caused, it may not even be your fault. But if there's a major piece of pain that's caused by that transaction falling out from your client, then guess what's going to connect them to that pain every time? Your face, right? So they'll stop using you just because it's a way for them to be disconnected from the pain that they just experienced with the deal busting out. That's why it's imperative that you don't let that happen. You can't let it happen. All right. One of the things Gary talks about is no one else is going to do the due diligence for you. It's entirely up to you to oversee from start to finish that the contract makes it to where it needs to be. The buck stops with you. It's not your broker's responsibility, right? It's not your supervisor, real estate supervisor's responsibility. It's not your accountability partner's responsibility. It's not your client's responsibility. It's not the other agent responsibility or the title company's responsibility. It's not the lender's responsibility. It is your responsibility. You, I'm pointing to you in the camera. It's your responsibility to ensure that the contract goes from start to finish. It's up to you. And guess what? It's in your best interest to move that thing through as fast as possible because there's so many landmines in the ground, right? You want to get across that. You want to get across that piece of land as fast as you can, right? All right. So now, it's best to prepare as if everything will go wrong, right? I'm gonna say that again, just in case you missed it. From a preparation standpoint, it's best to prepare as if everything's gonna go wrong. Now, we know it sounds pessimistic, but really it's not, right? What do they say? Expect the best, but prepare for the worst. That's all we're saying. You don't want to get caught. 6 issues that Gary pointed out. He actually has a visual, and we kind of go through all 6 of them off this visual that he did. 6 issues that he's identified. Now, I came up with 9. I call them the 9 evil bosses. So matter of fact, go back through our previous episodes for Create Your New Life, and I did a session called the 9 evil bosses, right? And these were the 9 people and areas of a transaction whose opinions could kill it. Well, Gary, under the same vein, has come up with these 6 issues, and he's laid them out here, right? Issue number 1 has to deal with inspections and repairs. He recommends that you attend the inspection, preferably with the seller or the buyer. Why? Well, the inspection is one of those things where surprises can happen, right? And you want to make sure that your client doesn't have to experience that surprise without you being there to buffer the pain of it, right? When the inspection and the repairs and all that stuff comes in, you want to be there to soften the blow, right? So that's why he recommends you go to the inspection. It's a lot of complexity, a lot of technicality that we know that your client's not going to understand. So you need to be there to translate for them, because guess what can happen? If you're not there to translate and they try to translate it themselves, a lot of times that could be the reason that they walk away from a good deal for them, because they didn't have the right translator. All right, so you want to make sure that the tone of the inspection is assumptive. What that means is assumptive towards closing and supportive regarding the purchase. What that means is when you're working with your inspector, especially if you're choosing an inspector, you're representing a buyer, you need to have a conversation with that inspector and say, look, I know you're looking out for your client. You want to make sure they don't get to a bad house, but I need you to be supportive. Like, we're gonna be solution oriented. We're gonna assume that the client's moving forward. And what you're doing is that you're giving unknown information that we can best prepare ourselves or put you in the right position to close. If you get the wrong inspector and that inspector goes in there and starts talking about how bad and crazy the property is, then now they're stirring up those fears, they're stirring up those emotions. And again, it can put everybody in a bad position. So you want to be ahead of that, and you want to be aware of that when choosing your inspector. All right, now he also talks about appraisers. It says to really protect the transaction, you may want to prepare a backup plan if the appraisal doesn't come in at the number that's needed, right? If the house doesn't appraise for the sale price or the loan amount, you should already have alternatives of, well, this is how we're going to redirect if that happens, right? This is how we're going to sidestep. Have that already done. Don't be trying to figure it out on the fly, right? Again, we're our least creative when we're surprised, right? So when you got stuff that won't support the price, won't support the loan, doesn't match the CMA, already have your plan in place on what you're going to execute and how you're going to execute it, right? They talked about loan approval and funding and some of the issues that can, put your buyer client in a state or even your seller client in a state to where they just want to throw their hands up and give up, you got to make sure that you keep them out of that mindset. You got to make sure that they maintain an extraordinary atmosphere and an extraordinary energy, the right mindset as they're moving through this transaction. You got to make sure you do that for your customers and your clients, right? Now he has this, it says other contingencies. So, and he talks about sale of the buyer's house, third-party approvals, short sale approvals, things of the sort. So he compiled all of those into other contingencies. He talks about co-op agents, right? Bad advice, bad communication, a co-op agent not paying attention to details, or poor vendor selection. They picked the wrong vendor, and that vendor is killing the deal, right? So, you know, once you have signed an accepted purchase contract, you know, at that point you're talking about negotiating, you're talking about an initial meeting. It's essential to lay down the plan and agree on the key deadlines. That's what Gary recommends, that you have a heart-to-heart with the co-op agent to make sure that you and the co-op agent are on the same line, right? On the same page, that y'all are both having this mindset of assumptive closing, that look, we're getting this thing to the closing table no matter cost. We're not adversaries. We are advocates. We are on the same team. We are, they call it co-op agent for a reason, because we're here to cooperate with one another, right? Because at the end of the day, you and that co-op agent has the same goals, just like the buyer and the seller have the same goals. That's get the transaction done, right? All right, and then the last thing Gary talks about is deadlines. Now, he says these are the 6 issues that go into deals busting out. Now, he says deadlines are called that for a reason. Cross the line, the deal is dead. If you miss a deadline, you can put the transaction at risk. It's not, you know, it's 2 ways of thought when it comes to deadlines, as far as the rigidity and the solidness of them, or the fluidity of deadlines. I'm more of on the lines of the fluidity of deadlines. But what I do agree with is that missing a deadline can put the transaction at risk. So depending on your level of risk in business, you gotta make sure that you take that into consideration. That if you miss it, it doesn't automatically mean it's over, but it can put it at risk. Gary says time's not on your side, and I agree with him. You have to bring a level of urgency to the transaction. You can't depend on the other members or the other parties bringing that level of urgency. And the one thing about being under contract, the more time, the more opportunity for it to bust out. So you want to be urgent and decrease that timeline as much as possible to ensure your success as you get through it, right? So those are the 6 issues that Gary talks about in the book. Now, he also mentions 2 strategies, and he calls them timeless strategies. He says that, you know, these strategies, you know, he says that one of the reasons a transaction may fall apart, it may not be due to any one specific issue. The fact is that all really boils down to fear. And he's right. It may not just be one thing. Because of a compilation of, or a buildup of multiple things, it introduced fear, and that fear went unmanaged, and it built up to the point to where now it's insurmountable in the mind of the client, and they walk away from the deal for self-preservation standpoint. So that's why the idea is to be proactive versus reactive, right? The advantage of anticipate. Anticipation is key. Being able to anticipate where the transaction is moving so you can get there ahead of time. Catch it, always stay in front of it. That should be your motto, your MO. Always stay in front of whatever could possibly happen. And the only way that you can do that is being able to anticipate. So the 2 timeless strategies that Gary talks about are the proactive prevention, right? Anticipating and being proactive about preventing things. And then early response, which is responding to areas as soon as they happen. Not letting any time pass when something starts moving in the wrong direction, being able to stay on top of those things, right? It says if anything can go wrong, it will. That's good old Murphy's Law. If anything can go wrong, It will. So here's a visual that Gary gave us that goes into some more detail concerning those two timeless strategies and how they fit when it comes to bulletproofing your transaction. So it starts with the proactive prevention, and you want to do that with buyers, sellers, vendors, and the co-op and agent, right? A couple of techniques that he uses. One of them is outcome framing, right? And all outcome framing is that you're reminding people about the intended results of the decisions and actions, right? So, you know, what do we want to achieve, and keeping everybody under that vein as we're going through it. That's all outcome framing is. And again, what we're talking about here, these strategies, again, it goes into about making sure that you're prepared once you get under contract. You can't just be going into it haphazard and just letting the chips fall where they may, because again, you put your transaction up risk, and if the transaction busts out, it's not because that was the inevitable direction of the transaction. It's because you didn't guide it or operate within the guise of the transaction the right way. And what does that mean? That means it could have been avoided. You losing that commission check could have been avoided. Your client missing out on a house or the seller missing out on a buyer could have been avoided. And the reason that it wasn't avoided was because you went in half-cocked and not being prepared. So that's what we're here talking about today, and how to ensure that you're in your most prepared state. He talks about under proactive prevention, setting expectations. You know, what do we realistically need to consider? What do we want? Making sure that we have the alternatives already prepared, right? So if this happens, you know, hey, if it doesn't appraise, if it appraises for less than what the seller's asking, and the seller decides they don't want to move forward, what will we do then? Right? Or the seller doesn't want to come down on the price. What will we do at that point? Mr. Seller, we have it under contract at this point, but if it doesn't appraise at that number, what are we going to do then if that doesn't happen, right? So you want to have these conversations up front, right? All right, and then reassurance. You know, every point through the process, you want to continually reassure the client that they're making the best decision. They're making the right decision. This was the best alternative. We're going to get to the closing table. Like, you have got to be your client's cheerleader, and you got to help them maintain that positive momentum and that positive environment to ensure that they emotionally and mentally make it all the way through, right? We've been through enough transactions, and we know how heavy that they can be. For most of our clients, this is the first or maybe the second or third. My point is, they don't do this a lot. So the rigors of the transaction, what we may have become numb to, it is still very intense for them. So you have to reassure them and give them confidence, right? The second response, you know, in the proactive prevention piece, he talks about buyer remorse. And, you know, after people make large purchases, they begin to second guess themselves. So that's why that whole reassurance piece is important. You already know it. We already know it. Now we're going to do something about it to make sure that it doesn't impact us negatively. All right. And then the second response, the second strategy is early response, right? So that's where constant communication, and I think that's where a lot of agents drop the ball, is that they don't put enough emphasis on making sure you communicate, right? Even if you feel like you're over communicating, that's how you should feel, right? If you feel like you're communicating adequately enough, you're not communicating enough, right? You should feel like you're giving too much information. That's what effective communication looks like, right? Because again, we take for granted people's level of understanding on the things that we're saying because this is what we do every day, all day. We're extremely comfortable with the material. But our clients, they don't do this on a regular basis. So you have to spend time making sure that you are aware that you're there, that you're present. You got to make sure that your clients constantly feel like you're present. If they ever feel like they're in this thing by themselves, it is going to go south for you quickly, right? So, one of the points that Gary really pulled out was that there are very few things that left on their own get better, right? It's even a scientific term to describe it called entropy, that anything left alone tends to fall apart. We can see it, just look at it like a house. Look at a house that's vacant, not lived in, doesn't have any life in it. At some point, it just deteriorates, right? That's all entropy is about. What he's saying is that when things begin to get into your transaction, and if you don't deal with them, you don't address them, right? You're not communicating with your client, it begins to fall apart. So constant communication is important. What's happening? How are we doing? Inspecting expectations. How's it been so far? What adjustments do we need to make or not make? Like, you want to be in that kind of conversation with your client all the time, because it allows you to deal with any issues or problems or challenges to begin with. Early response also deals with problem solving. Gary says problem solving is both a skill and a process, right? He says you can be a creative person in finding alternative ways to get things done, and you can be a catalyst for the creativity of others. When it comes to working through difficult issue in a transaction, you will likely need to do both, right? That's magic right there. You have to become creative in problem solving. You have to become the most creative in problem solving. Why is that? Because when you're dealing with problem solving, that again can push you in the best position to be successful. So you want to be able to manage and deal with the problems as they come, right? All right, so now the last part of what we're going to talk about today as we close out has to do with playing defense, right? Now, if we look at lead generating, if we look at a closed conversion, finding motivated people, getting to the table, getting them to hire you, creating a level of urgency to get them under contract, all of that stuff represents offense, right? That's all the stuff that you have to do on the front end to get people to hire you, right? Well, if all of that is offense, then bulletproofing the transaction is defense. That's about playing defense to protect, to make sure that the problems, the negative stuff doesn't get in the end zone. That's what that's about, all right? So now, at the end of the day, the real estate sales business is a game, and it's a game that has a beginning and an end, period. And both are critical to our success. At the beginning, we lead generate for sellers and buyers. We convert the leads to appointments. We bring a meeting of the minds. We get accepted purchase offer contracts. All that stuff happens in the beginning, right? And again, those are critical aspects of you being successful in real estate. Being skilled and knowing how to do those things is critical, right? But then once you do that, the second part, the end, is just as critical. Getting it to the closing table, right? So when you first start a transaction, when you first start in this business, the first part, he calls it the hard focused work of making connections and achieving agreements. Gary calls that's heads down work. That's your heads down, you on the phone, you sending out emails, you networking, you shaking hands, you focus, your heads down. You got your hand to the plow is what's happening on the front end, right? You're going on appointments, you're being prepared, you're doing that stuff, right? But then he says the second part is where you got to be wide-eyed open. You got to be vigilant, that guardianship of the transaction, right? Until it makes it to the closing. He calls that's the heads up stuff. That's where you got to put your head up, and you got to be constantly looking around and being aware of any issues that may be coming to threaten, right? Any foreign agents that may be trying to come into your transaction to threaten it and prevent it from making it to the closing table. So you got to be on guard. You got to be vigilant during those times. He calls that's when you got your head up and you got to be aware. And we got to do both, right? So we do our deals heads down, but we save our deals heads up, right? And that's how Gary ended that last tactic, and that's how we'll end going through all 12 tactics of, oh, look at me. I did the wrong thing. I ain't even showing y'all the right screen. Look at that. Look at me. But yeah, so that's how Gary ended it, right? He ended it with, we do our deals heads down, which is how we get them. Go through all those aspects, lead generation and the sort. And we save our deals heads up, making sure we can see what's going on, all right? So, with that being said, we've gone through all 12 tactics, right? And next session, we are going to do a wrap-up. So we're going to do kind of like a consensus of everything, just so we can kind of wrap this whole, our time together with the shift, wrap it up, put a bow tie on it, so we can make sure that there's complete understanding of the concept, right? What I'm going to look to achieve next week is to take all the complexities of what we talked about over these last 11 sessions, or 10 sessions, take all of those complexities and break it down to
no, great training. We're going to go ahead and recap. The great thing about being able to go back on the videos and take some more detailed notes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Margaret, you good? Margaret's good. All right. Well, with that being said, let me go ahead and get my music going so we can wrap this up. Got Margaret and Jess. We made it through an hour, so y'all got that CE credit. What? Get that CE credit for that elective. So good. Let me get my music up. Turn my radio up. Turn my headphones up. Bang out in this thing. No, we are at the end of this thing right here, baby. Create your new life. Coaching, real estate, business, and coaching session. We are here at the end. Had a great time talking about how we're going to make sure that our coaching sessions our training sessions don't blow up. We're going to put all kind of protection to ensure we get to the closing table and get that commission. All right. Quick reminders. Look, we have our company reveal on the 20th. We want all y'all to come out, see our new digs, see what we're looking like in our coaching center. Come on out, come hang out with us. We're ending this series up, so go back, look through the other episodes, see what we're talking about, come with us on the recap next week, and then we're going to wrap all this up. Until we speak again, this is Michael G. Davis, CEO, broker of Brooks & Davis Real Estate Firm, coaching you into the cosmos. It's time to take off. We'll talk soon.